Good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for tuning in BTM TV. Today is the 24th day of March 2022. We're just left with a few days to cross into another month of April. It also happens to be the second day of Ramadan. Ramadan Kareem to the Muslim brothers and sisters across the globe. Please, thank you for observing the fourth pillar of Islam. Do what God asks you to do. Love His people, love His creation, love each other. Increase your faith in this holy month of Ramadan. My name is Idrissa Muwonge. Special programming. We do have a guest in the studios, and we're going to be discussing matters pertaining to the development of this country. He's a man advocating for the rights of journalists. I'll be telling the organization where he comes from. But before that, you know what is happening in the country. Just last week, this very week actually, Parliament passed the anti-homosexuality bill. We are now waiting for the president to assent to it. Will he? Will he not? In America, the Uganda House is alleged to have been attacked by someone who was unhappy because of what was done in Parliament. This man went and stoned, one of the doors and then smashed the glass there. When he was caught, he asked why he did what he did. He said, I was so angry because of what the Ugandan parliament just passed. And also in the US, we've already got some reports from the authority, from the leaders there, saying that they're unhappy with what parliament did, and now they're keeping an eye on President Museveni to see whether he's going to assent to it. It should be remembered that this is not the first time that the parliament passes that anti-homosexuality bill. Remember way back, when it was passed, President Museveni assented to it, turned to a law, then later on it was challenged in court by Honorable Fox Odoi and other people. They challenged it on grounds that there was no quorum when it was passed. Indeed, it was quashed by the Constitutional Court. This time around, is it going to stand? We are keeping our eyes wide open to see that President Museveni is going to assent to it. But there is a lot of pressure on him, especially from the West. In the studios, I do have Mr. Robert SSEMPALA. He is Executive Director of the Uganda Human Rights Network for Journalists. I beg your pardon. Good to have you, sir.
Good to have you, sir. I'm happy to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year, because I'm seeing for the first time. It's been long since I last heard you here.
Happy New Year. Yeah, it's been a while actually, but we're only in March, so it's not too long ago.
Yeah, I've just seen.
And I'm an ardent fan of the station, so I follow a lot what comes through, even when I'm not in studios.
Yeah,
I'm part of the audience, so I'm happy to be here this time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you actually do our best to keep our people there informed, and also thank you so much for advocating for our rights. At least we know that we have people behind them who are going to protect us. Of course, as we also try to respect the law, do whatever we do within the confinements of the law. Well, Mr. Robert, what is happening where you are that we should start with, first of all, where you sit, where you stand as an advocate of rights of human rights, or advocate of journalist rights?
Yeah.
What is it that you feel so much pressing that you're working on? Is there some journalists whose rights have been infringed on that you are busy working on to save?
Yeah, we are certainly working around the clock to make sure we have a fair or conducive operating environment. Sometimes people might think we're not even working when there is no journalist beaten, but we are busy looking at the different laws, looking for public interest litigation cases, trying to do strategic engagements with key actors who impact the space of operation for the journalists, and also trying to advocate for wider voices for press freedom and journalist rights, because this is not work for HRNJ alone. We all want to interest our peers in the wider civil society and the human rights spectrum to really appreciate, understand the workings of the media and the critical role the media plays in a society or a democracy, so that they can speak to those issues as well. Those actors include Parliament, the Human Rights Commission, the RDCs, the security forces, the civil society, local governments, the faith-based leaderships, cultural leaderships. We engage with all of them in the interim. We also penetrate in the countryside, in the remotest, because operating environments are really different from Kampala, and when you go up country, things are really different. There, the journalists don't seem to have a say. they entirely depend on the whims of the politicians. Many actors influence the work, so we go to empower them, yes. But also to make the other peers understand that the media should be left to operate and elaborate how important the media is to a society in terms of education, in terms of sensitization, mobilizing the society, entertaining them, and they need to really be a bit free to do all that.
It's really unfortunate.
And in this regard,
it's unfortunate that there are some people who need to be explained to the role and the importance of the media. Yet these people possess television sets in their houses, they possess radio sets, and every time they're tuning them, they're not wondering
many people,
the information that they are consuming.
Many people know how to switch on and off, how to scan through channels, but they don't know where this work comes from, and they do not sometimes even care to understand what it is that they can do to facilitate this work that they watch on TV, that they listen to on radio, that they read about in newspapers. And one of the people that we really engage mostly, all the institutions, is the security forces. Because for them, they tend to believe that the media must work like a security apparatus. That the media should abide by all the orders, jump. You don't have a question why, you just say how high must I jump, and you don't question why are you jumping. So in the media you ask the 5 W's and the H. Why, where, how, who, when. You always ask, so as to inform your decisions. So these are some of the people, the institutions that we systematically engage to say, if you say get away from there, please have an explanation. Get it's not safe for you, and I will understand it. Don't just beat me, don't just push me. For them, an order is an order. So those are some of the people that we engage, but also others, especially the business community. They don't seem to understand. They, for them, want to see their businesses come through, but there are also other roles that the media must play. Even when you have money, there are spaces that must be ring-fenced for public consumption, community, public good for everyone. Which media is, and as such, you also made mention of the anti-homosexuality bill that was recently passed by Parliament. We are greatly concerned by this law, because... Why are we concerned?
Aren't we part of the group that is jubilating because you are upholding your values as a nation? And
we still have concerns because the media was not gainfully engaged in this process. The framers were mainly people from legal backgrounds and other backgrounds. They did not put into consideration, deep consideration, how a media must play under the circumstances. What role must it play? And as such, they introduced very exorbitant and very rigorous penalties. For instance, for a media house to offend a clause in this law, and then you sanction it to pay 1 billion Uganda shillings. That is 5,000 currency points times 20,000 shillings. It gives you 1 billion. How many media houses in Uganda can afford? Because many people certainly will offend the law.
Avoid paying that. How? Avoid promoting homosexuality.
No. I have questions with promotion. It is so vague, it's so ambiguous. What is promotion? How does it start and where does it end? One time we were in court over the Anti-Pornography Act. And we won a very good case because the framers in Parliament, the same Parliament, did not put into consideration what pornography really entails. They just said, when somebody is exposed, blah, blah, blah. And we said about swimmers. They put on swimming costumes. If a journalist takes a photo of a swimmer, are they promoting homosexual pornography? About people who dress so skimpily. If you go to Karamoja, people dress almost nothing, and I'm carrying their photo on the front page. So am I promoting the same? It really was so vague that a court agreed with the three of us that went to court and said the parliament didn't do a good job. Just like now, we certainly will challenge this law in court if the president goes ahead to assent to it the way it is, because we also want to consider a fact that if you're going to revoke licenses of a media house, about if it was the work of a single journalist, about if it was not an editorial policy for the media house, about if somebody was trying to sensitize. They did not consider all those things, sensitization of the public, about if I'm critiquing the law, because the media is a clearing house for so many opinions. You can't say that all that the media houses will say is what favors you as the proponents of this law. I might have divergent views and I'm supposed to discuss this. then the framers, to them, didn't think that there would be systematic discussions around such issues of homosexuality. So we really have concerns, and we've since expressed our concerns. We're going to put it in writing to the president, because even the time that was given for public views, for us to go and give our opinions, was too short for people. Many people remained with their opinions. The proponents of the law wanted to beat a deadline of Tuesday, like the speaker had said, that Tuesday, come Tuesday. You do not rush. This country was not under fire. There are more pressing issues that needed more time and have not been considered.
So it's not a pressing issue?
It's a pressing issue, but I'm saying it's not among the key ones. Look at skyrocketing commodity prices. I wanted us to look at the entire law. Besides the clause which talks about the media, what's your perception about the entire... As a media rights organization, we've not addressed ourselves to other issues, yeah? Because we have our CAT. Our CAT is entirely the position of the media in this. We should, because... I'm talking in terms of an organization. Okay. I might have personal opinions, but now I'm here to speak for HRNJ, the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda. Our preoccupation is to critically look at this law and see how enabling or how disabling is it to the operations of the media. Because we can't wait to a point when BTM is closed down because somebody was on air and made mention of the law or of an act somewhere, yeah? Because you might take a photo. For instance, me and you could hug. We are friends, we haven't met in a long time. Then we are hugging and somebody takes a photo of us and puts in the papers, saying 2 long-time friends are finally met. And then somebody says this is promotion. Because that, in a layman's understanding, is the equivalent of promoting the same. So I think there are gaps in this law. And I want to believe that the president will address himself to them. We'll certainly write to him to tell him these are wrongs. What exactly are you going to court challenge? Exactly? No, we are not going to court yet, because the president has not assented to the law. Yeah, once he does, then we will have what's that specific clause that is bothering you for the benefit of our viewers? Clause 14 of the act, of the bill, speaks to issues of saying if an entity, legal entity, is seen to be promoting this act of homosexuality. And in promoting, they made mention of using internet, social media, electronic gadgets, and so many other things that we use as the media. And it did not clearly specify where the beginning point for promotion and the end point for the same is. So it is ambiguous and vague. And in good legislative frameworks, you do not leave ambiguities in a law. You don't subject it to manipulation, because many people will manipulate it. Even the enforcers, the police and the officers of the DPP might find problems interpreting this. So we are having issues with that vagueness in the law, especially touching the work of the media. There's the judges. Interpretation. The investigating bit is done by the police. Actually, what the courts do is work that was started on by the police and then sanctioned by the office of the DPP who prosecute the case. So the courts are only relying on what is brought on their tables and reading the law. In here, we're saying you should make work easy, even for the police, even for officers of the DPP, let alone court. Such that if somebody is committing a crime, especially for a media house, they should know that now here we are bordering on criminality. We should not. So there's that vagueness, and it's a concern for many people. Well, this thing was so rushed. Everybody will agree with me that it was so rushed in a space of so little time. A month almost, and the thing is done. For good legislation, give it time. Listen to all the parties. Even when you're stamping out corruption, do the same. Even when you're fighting, many other things, give it ample time so that you really exhaust all the loopholes and come up with a very solid, legal framework. According to the legislators, this was actually part of the pressing issues. That's one of the reasons why they rushed it, because of what they have seen happening on the ground. They are saying the advocates and the promoters of this act are so many. And in a short time, our culture could actually deteriorate. It could disappear. Granted. It doesn't give you a justification for leaving gaps in the same law, because you have done a shorter job accordingly. Like we advised recently in the Computer Misuse Amendment Act, in Parliament. Went there and submitted, 17 entities submitted, and told the committee of ICT committee, chaired by Engineer Magogo, that look, you bordering on making mistakes in here. These are the key concerns. They went ahead. Before that's settled, the Constitutional Court was nullifying Section 25 of the same law. Well, there is Section 24, but we also challenged the same. 14 entity, we were 14, and HRNJ was the lead petitioner. So in here also, we'll go to jealously guard the space of the media, expression. We have no concerns with, like I have told you, we have not addressed our issues to the other concerns in the law. There could be other actors,
look at the media.
But for us are looking at the media. What is its positioning? And I want to thank Honorable Semujunganda and of course Muhammad Inseriko. They did their best to try to say, here the media is. Why are you victimizing a media house? Because there is a single one person who has erred and offended this law. About the finance people, about the human resource people who are not writing stories, about the support staff. So you're going to close down an entire media house because of the recklessness of a single journalist. So this is part of our concerns, and we're following it through.
They expect journalists to have gatekeepers. So what he has brought wouldn't have passed if management didn't want it to.
So you think the finance people who have a role to play in our story shapes out? You think the human resource people have a role to play? You think they're technical people? The technical people are the journalists and the gatekeeping, which is the editorial. So you would say we have issues with the editorial, not the entire media house. Entire media houses are big. So big, so you can't close down and revoke a license. Because before it was clear, license will be revoked for 10 years. Now it's not clear how long. They will say a license will be taken away. Forever. For how long? If I asked some colleagues in the media. Also, I think for ease of implementation, we need to really address ourselves to key concerns. And I don't want to risk a temptation of a law being shut down because of recklessness of the legislators for issues that were brought to their attention and choose to ignore. You know, if you act sentimentally, you're bound to making so many mistakes, and these are already in our face.
True. Mr. Sempala, let's look at now, you know, the reaction, the possible repercussions in case President Museveni has sent this law. You have already seen the reaction. Like I said when I was opening, that this is the first time we've had such a law. You remember the reaction from the West, especially countries of Europe, we threatened, to cut aid to us. Same thing is happening now. Like I was telling you that in America, they have already reacted, saying that this is something bad, and we are keeping a keen eye on the president.
The UN has.
President Museveni himself has already said that there's too much pressure on him. One time he revealed that I received a call that was actually lengthy from the former, First Lady and also presidential aspirant of the United States of America. That's Miss Clinton. So this pressure, in case President has sent it to it, where is this going to leave us as a nation? We know very much that Uganda as a nation, we thrive so much on foreign aid. Look at our budget, for example. Over 50% is funded by foreigners. Where is this going to leave us in case this is sent it to?
I have not addressed myself to the repercussions as such, but I know certainly it's going to place us in a very precarious situation or position. But in the mindsets of the legislators and possibly the president, they think that we have work to do around that area. And I'm sure that if there are any repercussions, we will suffer the heat. As a country, as a people, we will be here to suffer the heat. But to say the least, I think that there's still work to do around this area. For me, I would still insist on the position of the media. There's still work to do around it.
But as media, because media comprises human beings, who are Ugandans in this case, who also have a responsibility to uphold their norms.
Granted, but we must not offend the constitution, because the constitutional provisions for press freedom are extremely clear, unless you go back and backtrack them. But in the current state that they are in, you cannot tell me that you fail to even define what promotion is and draw boundaries and parameters for it. because the people that are working into the media might have personal opinions and views, but what about their work? Yeah. The cultural institutions have a lot to play, the religious leaders have a lot to play, many different actors, and I'm sure they will pronounce themselves as much. But for us in here, even when they are actors within the media, you think that a good law is good for all of us. You know, no space for ambiguities, things that are not clear, amorphous, which are prone to manipulation. So you have to know that once you're cutting your coat, it's going to bear like to shape out like this, not for somebody to tell you your coat is being cut, your arm is out, and you expected it to be covered. So I want a journalist who is, held culpable for offending this law to have clearly known that this is where it begins, this is where it ends. So for the framers, I'm sure for anyone that will read this law, this bill, will find out that there are glaring gaps in it as regards to freedom of expression. No. Because you don't take away people's rights and go against the Constitution because you're sentimental and you want to clear something out of the way because you have a deadline. I think it was even very wrong in the first place to have set a deadline before knowing the workload. So you cut public hearings short, then in Parliament you rush it even when somebody, for instance, Honorable Semuju was on the floor trying to deliberate on the issue, and then the speaker says, but you're a member of the committee, why didn't you do that in the committee? That clearly shows you that there was not ample time, even for the members on the committee, to make a valid input into this particular legislation. Me, I'm not preoccupied with the rest of the cohorts. Ours, as a media rights organization, is this positioning of the media. And if anything concerns us most, it is that.
But the spirit of the legislators that evening, you saw how all of them turned in large numbers. In fact, those ones who are not even in the council.
No, there were 500. Here there were 300 something, which means that a big number, almost half, was not able to be in Parliament. And
nevertheless, there was quorum, right?
There was quorum. There was everything.
Quorum is not in question now.
Which for me is a very good thing, because as legislators, your work is to legislate.
My question to you is that you think all these legislators were not considerate of the media? Practitioners?
No, whether they were or not, for me, I read the bill in its current state. That's what I base on. I'm not into whether they gave them their minds onto what the media law should be like. Honorable Katuntu tried to say, please, if a single journalist has done something wrong, why are you going to victimize the entire house? Katuntu is one of the very formidable legislators that we've had over time.
Nobody questions that.
He's a lawyer, he really has been tested. So if he's advising you as a house, who are you not to listen and take heed? In there, they should, because during most of the public hearings in committee stages, when they set up committees to do public hearings, they normally write to key actors, even when you've not expressed interest. Yeah, to say, would you come and make input into the work of this committee? We're looking at ABCD. Please come with a written submission that you furnish the committee with well before time. And that's what we have always done. For the Computer Uses Act, we even went to Makerere Law School and held a conversation with the law dons, students and everybody. They went and made submissions in the committee which were ignored. We went to mobilize institutions. Yes. So I was one of the panelists at Makerere Law School. We really dissected the issues A to Z. In here, the time was not ample. Trust me not. And we'll have, I think we'll have a good case if the president does not heed to what we're going to really, we're going to advise him that please, Excellency, much as we really have work to do as a country, there are gaps as touching freedom of expression. And also borders on the safety and security of journalists. Because if the law is not clear, the public, the community will not know the parameters of the same. So it is exposed as journalists now out in the field. People will beat journalists thinking they are offending the law. As opposed to if the law is extremely clear on what it is that entails promotion. As the media is bound. About if we had a talk show, here discussing homosexuality, would we be promoting, would we be guiding, would we be sensitizing? They didn't address themselves to those key concerns that the media plays.
You know, Mr. SSEMPALA, we already have laws which actually press us in an awkward position. For example, laws of invasion of privacy, laws of defamation. You know, when I come here, I have the information, you know, about a person ABC, maybe a high-ranking official in the government, but are mindful that, hey, here I know there is a law of defamation, but I try to avoid it. Look at the law of privacy. I mean, we don't have news. No. Nevertheless, we coexist with these laws.
The mitigation is all those laws. If I'm factual,
yes,
then I don't care about your privacy. If I'm factual, if your moral standing is being questioned, you're a public figure and your moral standing is questioned. Say you're a leader, a married man, and I'm seeing you now trying to hide with some concubine in there, it becomes subject for the media. And media is to mirror society. If, for instance, you're supposed to go to your bedroom and sleep, and use your bedroom to keep stolen property, to torture your wife or your children, to keep, say, guns in there, it ceases to be a private entity for you and becomes a matter for public interest. And that's why police would even cordon it off. Or as a journalist, I would want to really investigate and expose you to say SSEMPALA uses his bedroom to torture, which is an offense in Uganda. You can't say somebody invaded my privacy. No,
At least for defamation, it's clear. If what I'm saying is the truth about you, or even if you concede.
Even for privacy, that's why very few people.
Privacy,
that's why very people are going to court for abusing their privacy, because when you read and compare it to press freedom and how media works, they would never be exposing the email trails of Clinton, Miss Clinton, that they're talking about.
Yes,
they would never be exposing Trump, president, in his whole capacity. But media is supposed to really bring out these issues and expose you, even when they were really done in a very private manner. But as long as they generate concern for the public, you have no room to hide away. You know, a leader must be held to public scrutiny, and that is where the media is always, oozing, trying to pop their biggest noses into people's businesses.
And then newspaper here, which almost
and also for defamation
scandals of, invasion of privacy.
Yeah, I know it too, and it has suffered costs because theirs most times are not factual. I've been invited to court sometimes to really understand these cases from that particular media house, and it's drastically going down because of such damages. It keeps paying to people.
Yes.
Like I said, if you're not factual, somebody will have a good case against you in court. If you're factual, saying you have 10 children, you can't insist you have 8. I have evidence you have 10. Whether they take me to court or not, I can.
But you see there are double standards in the law. Yes, if I have children, first of all, it's my right. I didn't rape a woman to have those children. If you cover the story about me, one, you're tarnishing my reputation. Two, you're not only doing that, but also invading my privacy. For current IGG, Honorable Betty Kamya, said they must do a lifestyle audit of public officers. Yes.
If you have 10 children, they're all going to international schools, and your salary is maybe this less. I mean, a journalist must be interested. You're driving a car that is worth people who have worked for 50 years, you've worked for 5 years, you don't come from a very rich background that you took over this from your family members. So there are many issues that can be subject to discussion for the media, and people, that's why I'm saying,
that's why I brought those two laws.
That's why I'm saying
coexisted.
People should understand the workings of the media,
even in the presence of such laws.
Yeah. But also you made mention of defamation.
Yes.
We were in the court of East Africa, Arusha court, trying to interest court to say that under the East African community, to retain such laws where leaders are hiding from public scrutiny is really so archaic. And it used to be done by those other leaders who didn't want to be held into public scrutiny. They never want to account to the people they lead, so they would hide under such laws. And in a modern society where, in an open society today, borderless society, you can't say you're being defamed if somebody is factual. And I'm sure we had. I
think those are the three grounds of defense: defense against defamation, truth, consent, and then also limitation.
Exactly. I'm sure. I'm happy.
And privilege.
And
that
privilege.
is in Parliament.
Yes, some information is privilege. That's why on the floor people will say a lot of things. They say, "Okay, repeat this outside." They say, "I'm not."
Yes.
Yeah, but also the other concern that we have. Currently, people were really questioning the incident that happened in Budo, English College Budo, when our colleague Andrew Naitre was arrested and charged with criminal trespass with intent to theft
And that's what kind of related what we've been discussing.
Which is an offense that doesn't exist. You know, when you read the penal code, you have to look for these offenses. It doesn't appear. There is an offense of criminal trespass, but not with intent to theft. And I'm sure this is already a bad case for them. But also, what was a man going to steal in a school?
You're talking about a man who was arrested. He was dragged to the courts of law. Yes. And then he was remanded. And now you're saying that he was charged with a case that doesn't exist.
Yeah, you know,
that concept of the judiciary.
No. Some police judicial discussions, I know, and I don't bother on them because I'm not discussing the merits and demerits of this matter. But I'm just saying the offense does not exist in the penal code. So it's one thing to arrest you and detain you, even charge you in court. It's another to sustain a case against you, and even for the prosecution to have convicting evidence against you. That's why many people have walked out scot-free. I
also understand he has not been acquitted, but rather he's been released on bail.
You know, he was released on bail. He has a case to answer, and the other one is defending him. Our counsel, Andrew Mumpenje, is his lawyer. We will press it upon the court to say, where do you get this charge from? You know, things like that. We recently won a case in Ilira against the DPC, you know, the DISO, District Information Security Officer, the RPC, and Attorney General for dragging journalists into police cells, keeping them for one night, searching their homes because they were covering a land matter, beating them up. So that happened in 2017. So we've been in court all this time, and on 23rd Feb, we won a case. We had wanted damages.
Oh, this long?
Yes.
It's not delivered?
It wasn't delivered. We had wanted damages to a tune of 600 million, but certainly court granted us 30 million. For us, it's punitive enough as well.
Who is meeting that cost to spend that money?
The DISO, the RPC, they will work with the
government. Let's be clear.
With the Attorney General.
The Attorney General. Now, this takes me to the next question that I was going to put to you, Mr. Sempala. The media paying the cost, the price, once the journalist, errors. Isn't it kind of related to what you are discussing now? That, look, for example, a police officer hits me. Yeah? I'm a journalist in the line of duty. I'm hit, and then I drag him to court, and then they compensate me. But it's the government that is. They are not, charging this person, this individual, but rather it's the government that is feeling the one. Isn't this kind of related to this?
Before it used to be the Attorney General. Now we have the Human Rights Enforcement Act, which places individual liability on the person, but also the Anti-Torture Law, which also places individual liability on the torturer. So now you cannot hide under the Attorney General. And in these cases, the Attorney General is not even supposed to defend you because you're discharging your individual capacity. And we've recently demonstrated that against one of the police officers, because we've made peace, I will not mention his name, who came to court with 2 lawyers from the Attorney General's chambers and said they were going to defend him. We raised a preliminary objection and told court that this man is being charged in his individual capacity, so he cannot use the office of the Attorney General. And the ruling was made in our favor. Tell him, sir, the Attorney General cannot defend you. So he had to go and cough out his little hard-earned incomes to look for a lawyer.
Lawyers.
And it was very hard for him. So he went on his knees and said, please, I'm pleading. Can we settle this out of court? Can we do an amicable settlement? We did an amicable settlement. He wrote promising never to do this. He compensated the journalist and said, please don't go public because I'm very, very remorseful. So in this regard, such people can never hide under the office of the Attorney General. They can never be defended by their bosses. Even when you are a police officer or a UPDF officer and go and then act notoriously.
Be charged as an individual?
As an individual. And that now is trying to tell them a bit. When it comes to paying, they must pay themselves. We have even had it.
Like look at this man from Kabarole, former mayor, who was paid a lot of money. It wasn't these soldiers who tortured him in the safe houses that compensated. It's the government. Yes, they are charged as individuals, but when it comes to paying the damages, it's the government that meets the cost.
It depends on who you've taken to court. In the case of a journalist that was beaten in Old Kampala, Old Kampala is police station. In the case of Andrew Rwanga, who previously worked with WBS.
But I don't know the state
that time,
which is the last time I checked, he was confined to a wheelchair. I don't know how he is now.
He's back to his feet, staggering a bit. I was with him at our office yesterday.
We are talking about, it's coming 7 years now? 7 years,
because this happened in 2016.
Very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. But the DPC Mwesije had to cough his own money.
Yes.
He paid 6 million. For a police officer to pay 6 million was too much.
It's too much.
And today he's out of employment because the police actor, still plays so.
He was fired?
Yes, he had to be fired. We wrote to the IGP Kaikura then and
told him it was terrible.
We quoted the police act and said the police of his rank, upon conviction of such a matter, he must be chased away from the police in disgrace.
Yes.
And the IGP pleaded with us.
In disgrace, what do you mean?
Just push him out of the force. He doesn't have to negotiate terms.
Okay.
Yes. So the IGP pleaded with us to go and train him more. He said this was a bit unprofessional. We can train him. He can be a better man. We said the law doesn't speak to training him again. He's becoming dangerous now for society. He can't be at the helm of security in any of the.
Everybody saw what he did, and it was really terrible. On a fellow human being, how could he behave like that?
But the confession he made in court was very appealing and touching at the same time, because he told court. Look, I was under pressure from my bosses to stop these boys from marching to the city center. So I went out of my way. I even went as a person on the ground and started chasing after the boys. And that's how I ended up into this position. But my colleagues have all abandoned me. I'm alone here in the dock. He was still in court. And that is a lesson.
Yes.
So I went to him and told him, now that you've learned the hard way, can you become a goodwill ambassador for the media? So we could even work with you. So you become like a flag bearer to say that the media must never be beaten, the journalists. You tell your colleagues, because most of them don't know the hit that you must suffer if you're caught in such a situation. He said, but people will still not believe me. I told him, you try. But he's even scared.
You can't change.
Today what he does...
He became poor. He doesn't know that?
Yes. Today what he does is going around asking for handouts from colleagues in the police offices. I'm sick, I'm this. He carries medical, documents, this volume. And
he's paying the price of his bad heart. What he did was actually bad heart. I wanted to ask you, annually you release reports on the biggest tormentors of journalists. We've always had security personalities, security agencies rather. This time around, who was on top of the list?
For the last 13 years, it's been the Uganda Police Force. For the last 13 years. One time we had issues with the judiciary, and that time is when there was always accusations and counter-accusations between the opposition FDC with the security and the judiciary. So there were many issues happening in court. But at the time when we were finalizing our report and the judiciary was going to really be on the top of the tally, the police does some other abnormal things, and then they still read the tally. But this time around, we are in the final stages of the report for last year. It's really compiled. We are finalizing it. Want to reveal who is leading, but the police is not in a good position as well. To get mainly security, and we do not know why, despite the engagements we have had systematically with the security, things are not even improving. Either we're talking to the wrong people who come and their ears are not open, then go back and act as before, or their hands are tied, acting under immense pressure, and they can't make decisions in there. We're trying to tease the situation to know what exactly is the cause for these confrontations. But I'm sure that the situation is fairly progressively getting better. For some, going by the statistics, at least as per the report coming out.
Lastly, recently, the government of Uganda moved to cross the UN Human Rights Office in Uganda. What was the reaction to this?
That was disastrous. It still is. Why turn away a UN office that is overseeing human rights in your country. So what are you hiding away from them?
The justification of the government was like, we don't need this. We have the Uganda human rights, you know, we have the Mr. SSEMPALAs here.
And the Mr. SSEMPALAs here,
rights of the journalists. So we don't need this.
The Mr. SSEMPALAs here are telling you they need the UN. For us who are in the kitchen, if we say we need the UN, certainly I know that many African governments, especially led by strong men, some people use strong men to mean dictators. Some people use strong men. Don't want oversight roles of such international bodies, and are being really chased out of their countries systematically. And in that regard, I know it's going to be disastrous if we're turning into an election and we have no such a body. You just saw what happened at their offices when Bobby Wine went to petition them. That's when the UPDF came out so boldly, light, and beat everybody in there.
The victims were from here.
Because they know how powerful and strong this institution is, they came out and apologized immediately. Yeah? So you can really understand why it is being feared. But the argument that we have now fully-fledged, well-established human rights institutions doesn't merit. If people have been privy to how the Human Rights Commission in Uganda works, you would really say there's a lot of work to be done. Now, even now that there are young Turks, the Kaherus, the Shifras, and many people, to complement the old Turks that have been in there for long, there's a lot to be desired, I must say. Justice is not delivered on time, you know. One time somebody walked into our office recently to follow up a case of 2019. We went and reported a matter. And then this human rights officer walked into our office to say we are following up on this case in 2013. I said, what? I said, what are you doing here? I said, you know, we want to close this file within this time if you don't give us information. I said, what is lacking on your file? They have never contacted the person who petitioned them, but they are coming to HRNJ to say, what do you have for us? He said, you guys should really be faster. At least even when you have a backlog of work, at least call a person to say, we're in receipt of your file, and this is what we're planning to do, ABCD. If you can't do that, then let people know that you go to court. We're not able to handle this. Look at what happened during the previous elections. Human Rights Commission was accredited to observe elections, and to a tune of only 30 people. Before, they would employ about 200 something. Here, you have 30 people to supervise over 100 districts, meaning every officer would have about 3 districts to themselves during an election day. You really see how that entity is looked at by the powers that be in government. So it doesn't merit for me for any argument that now we are done with the UN. Yet we still take their money. We still have other UN agencies here, 17 of them, and you're saying this one on human rights should go. The rest can stay, but this one should go. You know, and that is the third attempt at chasing them out of this country. So it's been.
As I look at the history, the mandate that was given to that office was just, you know, initially their mandate was to operate. Was it northern Uganda, those who inflicted areas? Then later on it was extended all over the country. Now, government was like, in our senses, we feel we don't need you anymore.
Do you believe government has a justification, a valid reason?
That's the justification they gave, that we have the civil society, it's advocating.
Did you believe them as a journalist? Did you believe them as a journalist?
Does it matter what I believe?
Yes. Because of the eyes
matter anyway.
Because you're the eyes and ears of the public, so you can bring feedback from the public.
How could I believe them when myself I'm a victim? I know what is happening. But
I think it's a very unfortunate decision, which should be rescinded. Since they are still not out of here, the colleagues are in here, government can really adjust their position to say, okay, your hands off this, just do empowerment. You work with the likes of the SSEMPALA, empower the Human Rights Commission. I know other actors in Parliament, in the security forces, because I've been doing a lot of training for people, a lot of training on how to identify, document, publicize human rights violations. What is an abuse? What is a violation? They've been having the best, modules for this partial training. And without them, I don't know who's going to occupy that gap. But as a country, we're democracy in making. Maybe somewhere something, a miracle will happen somehow, somewhere. Maybe the EPDF will swing into action to do, because whenever there's a gap in here, we call on the military. When the health workers are going on the side, they say construction for human rights. But things they say, okay, let the military handle. Maybe they'll come in and do this thing because they have a good office. For human rights, by the way, human rights, they have one of the best offices in there, the directorate.
The PDF?
Are
you sure about that?
I'm very sure.
You're mocking them.
No, actually.
You know what is happening, for example, in Wazalendo? Was share with you. Yes, this is happening.
I can't wait to hear that from
we have to get out of here, Mr. SSEMPALA. Any parting shots that you have to make?
Yeah, as we tend towards 2026, because I see the political contestation is already happening. When you say don't move away from the main, move away from the main. When you say people are mobilizing under Kunga for the NUP and many others, you certainly know that the positioning of the media must really be asserted in here. And Mr. Norbert Mao was talking about electoral reforms. We have personal opinions as an organization because you don't introduce reforms towards the tail end of the process. The positioning of the media is not anywhere clear. You have Electoral Commission introducing regulations and guidelines in the last week of elections, and that is all shifting goalposts. So it should be done way in time, maybe 6 months to election, so that if you're going to join into an electoral process, you already know what to expect and things can't keep changing from time to time. I think it's really key. And also implementing the Supreme Court recommendations on how the media should work, especially government media, and the rest of us. How should offenses against journalists be expedited in terms of giving justice, not waiting for 5 years? Like we have, electoral cases being handled in a space of 6 months. I think that should also be true for offenses against journalists during elections. That beyond 6 months, everything should really be done. Sure. Not for us, the others are already getting their things out of the table. For us are waiting for 5 or even so years. I think we need to really address ourselves on the pending electoral reforms. But also, most importantly, if they're going to be taken into account, because we've participated, previously we participated as SEDU, because the Secretary General of SEDU, acting ED or acting chairperson of SEDU, many things, big things there, though it was banned by the same government. I was about to ask you that is we really moved around, had very good recommendations, went to Parliament, went to Electoral Commission. Things are not even taken up. So there's a lot even when we talk about electoral reforms, if they're going to be taken into account or not. So thank you for having me. Bring greetings from the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda, colleagues Magola, Diana, and everyone else at the offices. Because I take their credit actually. When they're not here, they say SSEMPALA is very good. Yet I have people who do a lot of work and a lot of doc work. So kudos to all of you guys, and thanks for standing in the gap for the journalists. They're really being the eyes and ears of the public. So thank you also for having us. It's always been a nice time being with you here to discuss our very own issues. Actually, we should intensify these discussions because for one, who's from outside, they will think we have no issues as the media. There are also issues that affect you, and we soon last who can speak about them. Yes, and that's why we are happy. At least as we do our work, we do it confident. We know that the SSEMPALAs are there. Because our guardians, if you have to speak for yourself, in fact, we appreciate the next thing you'll be hearing is UCC revoking your license. Yes. But if it's HRNJ speaking for you, they won't take away your license because you've not said anything. They won't. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for finding time, to come and be with us here as we discuss these matters. Thank you so much as well, our viewer. Thank you for always tuning in BTM TV. Our programming will continue. We'll be here tomorrow on the Dialogue. 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. We shall be here discussing much and more, including the anti-homosexuality bill that was passed by Parliament. President Museveni is in a very precarious position. Is he going to assent to it? Is he not going to? Because Ugandans, on the other hand, are pressing him, and the international communities, on the other hand, also, are pressing him. So he's head between a rock and a hard place. God bless you. See you then.